Going to talk about loading various 338 cartridges. I'm going to start basically the 338-06 or the 338-06 Ackley Improved. Both very good cartridges. I happen to prefer the Ackley Improved version. I'm going to talk about the 300 Winchester, the 340 Weatherby, and the 338 Rum. Anyway, one of the major things that I see to do with loading these cartridges is quite often people are using much too heavy a weight of a bullet. The bullet that's too heavy for all these cartridges pretty much is a 250 grain bullet. All these cartridges are best used on our game anywhere, loaded between, in some instances, a 185 grain bullet up to 225 weight bullet. Now, the Ackley Improved 338-06 Ackley Improved cartridge is best loaded with 200, 210, 225 weight bullets. And there's a pretty doggone good selection of bullets for the 338. Start out, Spear makes a 225 grain Grand Slam. Swift makes a 200 grain Sirocco and a 225 A-frame bullet. Hornady makes a 185 and a 225 CX bullet. That's their newest, latest bullet out there. The copper jacket. You know, that's a very good bullet. Seems to be a very accurate bullet. All the calibers that they're making it in. Novice, of course, makes a 200 grain Accubon and a 225 Accubon, a 210 partition, and a 225 partition. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that these little bit lighter weight, not lightweight, but a little bit lighter weight than the heaviest weight, they simply perform better. They simply give you a better kill effect. The 250 grain Nosler partition, for instance, is too much bullet even on a moose. A moose really have quite a habit of just standing there when they're hit. Just standing there and really doing nothing. Well, that bullet is just simply too tough, too stout for the animal. Yeah, you can kill the animal with it, but you're just simply going to have better results based on a long number of years of experience using these 338 calibers. About 38, 39 years experience using various one of these cartridges and the various bullets that we have. Automatically, to start with, I used a 250 partition. Several people that I built rifles, we all were shooting a 250 partition. We all got poor results. We had to shoot the animal numerous times with a proper hit. Well, it should be quite obvious that we need something that actually gave a better kill effect, so it registered on the animal that he was dead. You know. Yeah, they're going to die on their feet with a 250, but you're much better off using a bit lighter weight bullet. The Ackley Improved cartridge, I like the 200 grain Accubons, the 210 partitions, and I have loaded and used the 225 partitions, and I can get 2,700 feet a second out of a 225 partition out of that Ackley Improved. 210, somewhere in the neighborhood of around 3,000 feet a second. The 200 grain bullet, maybe a little more, somewhere between 3,000 and 3,100. Best powder for that Ackley Improved. One of the best powders that I have found for the Ackley Improved happens to be Hodgson's 4350. That's an extreme variety. Very, very good powder. There are other powders in about that same burning rate, ball powders and one thing another. And Ramshot makes a powder called their Hunter powder. And Winchester makes Winchester 760, and so forth. And that seems to be quite good. And you know, Elliott makes the reloader 19, so all of those powders, and invariably with a standard primer, almost invariably I have used nothing but Winchester large rifle primers in that cartridge. And just that cartridge alone, it'll shoot just as flat, loaded properly, with a good bullet as a 7 Remington Magnum will, loaded with anything. And anyway, I've checked the actual drop value with my Ackley Improved, for instance, sighted in 3 inches high at 100 yards. I've checked the actual drop at 600 yards. Same thing with the 7 Remington Magnum. And there's very little difference in the drop. You've got to understand that we've got a bigger frontal area and we've got a heavier bullet. For all the 338 calibers are very good on any of our game, elk-wise, deer-wise, and so forth. Anything of that size, or a moose, these cartridges really shine. There's a vast difference between shooting elk with a 7 Remington Magnum and shooting elk with, for instance, a 338 caliber, starting with the Ackley Improved. Now, we go to the 338 Winchester Magnum, which is an outstanding cartridge, and a very, very good cartridge, and always a smart choice if you're going to hunt game besides elk and you want to, have something that puts the animals down. All of us that started using 338s many, many years ago, one of the first things that we noticed was the kill effect of these 338 calibers. Whether it was a 200 grain bullet, 210 or 225, they all did an outstanding job. And, Hornady makes a 225 grain interlock in 338 caliber. That's also a pretty good bullet in those cartridges. Those 2 cartridges. I failed a few moments ago to mention that bullet and some of the bullets that I mentioned. They also make a 200 grain bullet. It's a fairly short bullet. It doesn't shoot very, very flat. It doesn't give the performance, as far as I'm concerned, that a guy is looking for in 338 caliber. Now, 338 Winchester runs extremely well with Reloader 22. That is an excellent powder. And of course, they're replacing that with Reloader 23, which is supposed to be basically that particular version is supposed to be a fairly temperature stable situation. And anyway, I haven't seen that any available, so I have no experience with it. But again, that cartridge runs outstandingly well with Winchester large rifle primers, Federal 210s, Remington 9.5s, things of that sort. And I have never had an opportunity that I felt was necessary to use, for instance, a Federal 215 primer or a Remington 9.5 Magnum or a CCI 250 primer. I've always stuck with those primers. Now we'll go up to the 340 Weatherby. You know, each one of these cartridges give you a gain of about 100 feet a second over the little bit smaller cartridge. 338 Winchester about 100 feet. The 340 Weatherby about 100 feet more than the 338 Winchester. So you go to the 340 Weatherby. All these bullets still perform very, very well at the velocities that cartridge is capable of, within reason. And in that cartridge, I have repeatedly found that Winchester large rifle primers and Federal 215s and CCI 250s work very good in the Weatherby cartridge. Now, the powder that I have had best luck with in that cartridge has been 7828, Reloader 22, and so forth. And really, there's not much of any advantage to the 340 as I see it over the 338 Winchester. The advantage comes in when we jump from there to the 338 rum cartridge. Now the 338 rum cartridge, it burns a bit more powder, give you a bit more velocity for downrange energy. Still use these same bullets. In that cartridge, I've always used either the Winchester large rifle primer, or the Federal 215, or the CCI 250. And 338 is really an outstanding cartridge for hunting elk, bears, grizzlies, so forth, moose, anything of that size in this country or in some other countries, game the size of those animals. Now, I happen to have a friend that I've known for a long, long time, and he became acquainted with a fella that had unlimited resource, it seemed like, and he killed many buffalo. I'm talking about, big African buffalo, and all that he used to kill all these buffalo, and I'm talking about 150 of them. He killed one hell of a lot of buffalo, folks. All he used was a 338 Winchester loaded with nothing but a 210 grain nozzle partition, and he shot them where you need to shoot them, and invariably he always tried for a neck shot where he could break the spine and it would just drop them in their tracks. And he dropped many buffalo with one shot with a, right in the armpit also. So that bullet hits hard, it kills well, and if it kills buffalo like that, what really more do you need, to be able to hunt those type of game than that type of situation. So anyway, if I was ever in an opportunity to do these sort of things, shoot buffalo, something of that size, I'd pick nothing but the 338 Winchester. And many years ago, we had considerably highly experienced writer and hunter, Bob Hagel, the late Bob Hagel, and he wrote for various magazines over the years. He lived in Idaho. He grew up when we had a lot of game. He knew his business, and he had a very high preference for the 210 nozzle partition in the 338s. And anyway, there's another 338 out there, and of course that's the 338, 378 Weatherby. And you've got to burn 20 some odd grains more powder in that cartridge to equal what, for instance, the 338 rum will give you. And I might mention that if you use that cartridge, you need to use the Winchester large rifle Magnum primer, because you're burning around 120 some odd grains of powder. The proper burning rate ball powder, probably US 869. And talking about all these details and talking about all these bullets, I'm going to touch on this bullet thing a little bit. It appears as though the only manufacturer of bullets for the hand loader that is interested in seeing that the hand loader has every bullet that they make, and that is Hornady. Hornady has went just absolutely above and beyond, supplying us with bullets, us preloaders, hand loaders with bullets to load. It appears as though Nosler, Spear, and Sierra are not interested in selling bullets anymore to the hand loader, because you cannot find them. You can go into almost any sporting goods store around the country and they'll have perhaps the entire stock of bullets from the smallest caliber to the largest caliber that Hornady makes. You can't find that with anybody else's bullets. And occasionally you can come up with some Barnes bullets. Barnes 180, 175 grain, 210 grain, 225 grain Barnes bullets. They're triple shock, or that lighter weight bullet that, you know, those are all good bullets also. And there seems to be some availability, spotty from time to time, of those bullets. I don't know why, other than the fact that these companies are concentrated on loading factory ammunition that they can sell for a real high price and so forth, but you cannot get any of these things that I've used for a lot of number of years, 30 some odd years. You just simply can't buy any weight in any caliber anywhere, period. These bullets are going somewhere. I don't know what they're doing to produce bullets, but from what I can see, there's no interest anymore. Us people that bought bullets that reload, ever since reloading was thought of, we have built these companies into the huge companies that they are. And here we are, after we've spent all of our hard-earned money for all these years, these companies just don't seem to be interested in supplying us with bullets. It's really pretty sad, because they make some excellent products, but you can't use it if you can't get it. So, bullet company, you three bullet companies, Spear, Sierra, and Nosler, let's see some bullets. Let's see some bullets. You know, and the few bullets that do show up, oh my goodness sakes, the price that's attached to some of this stuff is just absolutely unbelievable. Double and triple what it was at one time here just only a few years ago. So anyway, there's obviously a lot of money to be made making bullets, but you got to produce them for the consumer to buy them.